All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tiger MLB Draft Day 2, Day 3 recap here at TigersMindReport.com. I'm Rogelio Casino alongside Ms. Chris Brown. And we were going to go last night, but then there's computer errors and technical errors, if you will. But thank you for everybody who was waiting, by the way. I'm a little late, but there's a reason why we were late, and you'll appreciate why, because here's a teaser for you.
Here we go. First of all, I saw
Adele from the Detroit Free Press.
We have video.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for doing this, and congratulations to begin with.
Yeah, so we have video from Paul Wilson, Scott Harris, Rob Metzler, Max Anderson, and Kevin
McGonigle.
McGonigle.
You busted that crack house up pretty good, McGonigle. Sorry, there's an old, that's a deep Simpsons cut. There was a random character on a couple of Simpsons episodes, and that's it. And he was a Clint Eastwood detective named McGonigle. And for whatever reason, it sticks with me.
So there is a lot. So 9 prep bats were drafted by the Tigers, which is
prep players.
Prep players. Pardon me.
Yeah.
Prep players, if you will, and that is something that we're not used to. So first and foremost, by the way, thank you for everybody who tuned in on Sunday. Appreciated. Towards the end, I got to admit, Kevin McLovin. There was a lot towards the end of the broadcast. We were going on almost 5 hours worth of streaming and so honestly, I think next year, I was telling Chris, I think one of the things we'll do next year is take a break. We have to take a break. It was just cutting up the audio for the podcast. So you can find the podcast now on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. So that's available. Alex, how you doing? Andrew, good to see you too as well. But on a YouTube chat. So if you can find the stream over on our Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. But I had it when I was editing it, there's a lot of dead parts in there. And then there was a parts where me shuffling around, like trying to get dry and everything. And so I also took out the part of me yelling at people for giving me crap for my voice. Somebody said I sounded drunk. I was just like, maybe it's my sinuses. Maybe I don't know. I've been talking for 4.5 hours. But either way, thank you everybody who tuned in on Sunday. It was one of our better shows. We had people tuning in almost the entire show. So thank you. I really appreciate that. We appreciate that, of course. And thanks to Trevor, Rays, and Scott Bentley from Locked On Tigers. And you can find Scott Bentley. I'm actually having lunch with him this week. We're trying to figure it out once and for all. We always talk about this and we just never can meet up. But on to the show. So, Chris, again, some of the bats or some of the players too that were just like, so in terms of, this was the first time in a long time where I had literally, in terms of just what the Tigers were aiming and profiling, was a brand new premise to us.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was kind of what we hoped for, is that we would see a completely different philosophy and strategy. And boy, howdy, like I didn't even expect it to look like this. Like they took, as you said, 9 high school players. I think they're going to sign at least 8 of them. I will see. But yeah, they really went a different way. You can look at the through lines there. There are all the college players they took walk a lot, except for one. All the pitchers throw a lot of strikes. They get strikeouts. And a lot of guys with good hit tools. Like they really seem to focus on guys who could hit, which seems helpful. And yeah, and there's also kind of an emphasis, and this will be fun as we go through these players, that there's a lot of like, boy, they really scouted the hell out of this guy. Like a lot of really interesting stories where you're like, I don't know if the previous, and these may be the same scouts. They may have just been given different direction, but it just felt like I don't know if they would have found this guy before. So it's a really fun, interesting draft. It might not work out. We don't know. Baseball's hard, but giving themselves a chance at a lot of upside this year, which is, I think, honestly, what they needed to do.
Yeah, especially because there was a lot of the talk was about the one arm they were looking at. There was a high school 12th rounder was Andrew Dunford, 6'7", right-hander, and they're hopeful they can sign him. And so, Chris, what about him that makes him so what about him that stands out?
Well, first of all, it's just his size. He's 6'7", 235, and it's a low to mid 90s fastball. Like, probably mostly 92, 93, but he'll touch 95. He's got arm side run. pretty interesting sweeping slider, low 80s changeup. And yeah, we heard that he's got a deal in place. We don't want to report the value or whatever, but I think he's going to sign for sure. So, yeah, I mean, that's just kind of it's not that the Avila and Dombrowski administrations didn't take high schoolers, right? They did occasionally. We saw Riley Green, Isaac Pacheco, Parker Meadows, but never really after the first couple of rounds. It was like they thought the scouting wasn't worth it, or they didn't trust their scouts to project, or something like that. And what we saw, that was the big difference this year, is they were taking high schoolers throughout the draft and finding guys. I think, again, like usually it used to be like if he's not going to sign for $1 million, then we're not going to take him. I think some of these guys are going to sign for close to slot as high schoolers, or a little bit more, because they want to play. So, and that's just more that like deep scouting, where you hope that maybe he's not the flashiest player right now, he's not committed to a huge school, but you think there's some raw tools there that you can develop.
So I'm going to put it on the stream right now. I'm going to put on the first time Mark Connor and Rob Metzler talking to the press during this. I could have jumped on this anytime, and for whatever reason, well, I know why I work, but either way, here they are. So hear from the director themselves on their draft strategy.
Paul Wilson, big left-handed pitcher out of the Northwest, has bloodlines, and so one of the guys that like our area scout Cal Toey really touched on really early in the process. Good arm action, good delivery. Show you a fastball in the mid-90s, flash you a slider and a curveball. It's really, really good projection, and just a lot of upside to him, which a lot of the staff that went in there like super excited throughout the year, and pumped to get him where we did. Carson Rucker. Carson was somebody that like he was not on the big circuit throughout the summer, so he was a little bit of a kind of, I don't want to say under the radar player, because he was really well known in the state of Tennessee, and really good body, tall, projectable, long, loose. Starts out at shortstop. Like his body's like he's got some strength to him right now, and probably going to fill out. And long term, we'll see if he stays at short. But like it's a really good swing with high bat to ball capabilities and emerging power. The other thing is for his size, like he'll show you plus run times and really, really good baseball internal clock.
All right, so that was Mark Connor talking about some of the prospects, or some of the signings. They're talking about Paul Wilson and Carson Rucker, who they drafted in the 4th round out of Tennessee, 6'2", 195, right-handed bat. So, Chris, I also have some video on Carson Rucker too that I could pull up, and I'll pull it here in about a second. But what about him? That in terms of just looking at him, he comes from Good Pasture Christian High School, and the kid looks like he already kind of has. There's one thing about this draft that I notice: a lot of these kids look like athletes. And I'm not saying this before from like the past drafts, but there's just Rucker has that kind of same size Isaac Pacheco had when the Tigers drafted him. Uh-oh, your mic's went. You're muted. You muted yourself.
Yeah, sorry.
There you go.
I accidentally touched it and it turned off the audio, so I had to unplug it again and automatically unmuted me. But yeah, I think the thing that stood out to me was he just looks like a big, tall, strong athlete with probably plenty of room to fill out some more. And I like the swing, just the shape of the swing, the bat speed. It looks like built for driving the ball to the gaps and hopefully over the fence. Yeah, it was a fun pick, and he's this is kind of what I was getting at a little bit earlier. He's many, and he wasn't an unknown like Mark Connor said. But I don't think he did any perfect game events. He may have done a couple for Prep Baseball Report. He was at the Super 60 in the Chicago, which is usually around the Super Bowl, and put up some decent numbers there. But yeah, just wasn't a regular on that showcase circuit, and that sometimes can leave you without a lot of public evaluations. It is funny, he was in the Little League World Series. You could see video on YouTube of him hitting a homer and a double in the Little League World Series, 6-7 years ago. yeah, that's kind of excited about him. Yeah, it's probably a third baseman. I think they, Connor said he's got the good in timing and athletic and stuff like that. But a kid like that is just so big, you assume he's going to move to third, like you said with Pacheco. Like Pacheco has the hands and lots of stuff that still works at shortstop, but you're going to have probably a faster, twitchier guy in pro ball.
I will say, let me ask you this question though. So, in terms of taking the perfect game route or anything, is that something that, as more you have that option to do it, but you don't have to do it, right?
No, of course not. It's all about visibility, right? And you want to be so like Max Clark was at almost everything, although he also was committed to, like, he played football, and so he was doing a lot of stuff with his high school and wouldn't necessarily be there for the entire time. McGonigle was everywhere. He played in 112 perfect game events, like throughout his high school career, just everywhere, and he hit something like 470 in all those games. But yeah, part of it is like, I don't want to speak to Rutgers family or whatever, but sometimes guys just can't afford to do that much traveling around the country. It's travel baseball is really expensive.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I don't know, sometimes you want to just be a kid and play for your high school team, I think. And we've learned, and this draft is a great example, that scouts will find you no matter what. So, yeah, but we'd have to ask him about why he didn't do perfect game stuff. Maybe he had a bad experience when he was little. I have no idea, but
I was just kind of curious because it would seem like one of those things where it seems like everybody is in it. So it's just from a standpoint of slowly but surely. And yeah, tournament ball, I mean, this is 25 years ago when I played. It wasn't much of a thing. It was just the best locally. Now I can see my net, like tonight, just driving back from the gym, you see Taylor North has gotten their fundraiser going and everything. And then it's just for travel baseball. My nephew's playing travel baseball. My niece is going to be playing travel softball, and travel softball is becoming expensive. So we did get a question, and this comes in from Kara Rims, or let's see, here's the question right here. The staff seems like it'll take more risk. Connor just sounded more old school. They must really like the development process. Draft tools and develop. Is this similar to the Dodgers and Rays? I would think so in the Dodger standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Dodgers, the Tigers in the previous regime were just so heavy college. And I think they just trusted that, that the players weeded themselves out throughout college, and you had a better idea of what a kid could be.
Not to mention, too, like with Dombrowski would flip them a lot for trade.
Yeah, a lot of that was get this guy to the big leagues and move him. I think part of it was probably not trusting your scouts or just having heavy preferences for, we've seen it, like big school, big conference college kids. But we talked about a bunch where Connor used to be, with the Padres. They took high school players all the time. And I think it's just a different philosophy. It's teams used to do this. You can go back and look at Tigers drafts from the 70s or whatever, and they would take like 8 high schoolers in a row in the beginning of the draft. I think it's part of it is that it's the first draft into this new regime, and they really want to get a bunch of guys that they can develop and build up through their own system. And part of it, I think, is maybe trusting their scouts more, or trusting their development more.
All right, so we got some more stuff from Mark Connor here. Just want to add real quick before we get to a couple questions. As Evan Petzold is frozen in my screen. Now it's not working. Oh, that's great. All right. Well, I'll get back to sure what the issue is. All right. Well, anyway, so but yeah, it's one of those, like, for me, even one of the biggest that stands out in terms of even pedigree from before the past is the Tigers would always find a player with some sort of association with a former player. You've seen that with Cruz. You've seen that with the LSU connection, quote unquote. And that was something that we did not see at all. The only thing we can see was Paul Wilson, who I just played, who his father played, was a reliever. That was it. I mean, in terms of from my knowledge, but it seemed like there was every player also wasn't like a 6 foot athlete. Like, again, mention the athlete part of it. And the reason why I say that is because before in the past, they would take a guy who was there was no, I don't know. Sometimes it felt like there was no rhyme, no reason behind it, whether it was just a LSU pedigree or whatever the case is. But one person in particular, one arm in particular that came up quite a bit last night when he got drafted was Jantic Diaz out of the Dominican Republic, high school senior. And the hype behind him seemed like it's just something that didn't seem like a normal Tiger or what we would consider quote unquote Tiger pick.
No, not at all, because it's super high risk, super high reward. And really, this is kind of the prime example of what I was talking about like just the scouts going out there and finding guys. Because this is a kid, we don't really know how to pronounce his name yet. I think it's just Jank, Jatnk, Jank Diaz, Dominican kid, came up from the Dominican Republic to sort of eastern Pennsylvania, and couldn't play high school because of whatever sort of transfer regulations there are. So he didn't play at all. And I think Mark Connor said they saw him throwing bullpens somehow. I don't know how they saw that, but he was in the Major League Baseball draft league, which a bunch of these guys were. So they were able to catch him, and he put up some interesting. It was only 9 innings there, 9 1/3 innings, but he gave up 2 runs on 5 hits and 5 walks with 9 strikeouts. As an 18-year-old, fastball was sitting in the mid-90s, high spin slider like 27 RPMs, and a mid-80s changeup. He's a huge kid. He's like 6'4", 215, looks bigger than that. I think you could get either some positive sort of growth from him, or even what they used to call the Fangraphs, they called it the reverse development or something like that, where he actually gets leaner and more athletic. It's possible. But yeah, it's a big arm, a big kid with seemingly a lot of potential, probably also very, very raw. But yeah, you who knows what this could be in 3 years if with development there. So that's a really fun pick.
Yeah, I'm trying to find some video on YouTube that's not terrible. In just terms of just trying to find something that's where we can kind of see his skill set on hand, but a lot of the shorts are very small, can't really see much. So unless somebody else has a suggestion, please let us know. But okay, so this is hopefully playing again. Let's try this again.
This is honestly, we kind of talk about scouting opportunities, and he is truly a great example of the hard work by the.
He was Diaz from the Dominican Republic, and then Pennsylvania in high school. What's there to know about him? It seems like that could be a pretty good upside pick for you guys in the 8th round.
Yeah, I mean, this is honestly, we kind of talk about scouting opportunities, and he is truly a great example of the hard work by the entire staff. He's a young man that came over from the Dominican Republic in high school in Pennsylvania. He was ineligible this year and was unable to pitch for his high school team for just not academic reasons, but just for the move from Dominican Republic and the timing. So he would throw bullpens on the side, and our guys got a chance to see him there and tracked him into the draft league, where a bunch of our staff got to go see him. And he's a big, strong, strapping young man that's got a lively fastball and some real feel for a changeup. It is he's an exciting player. I mean, we're thrilled.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Hey, thank you.
All right, so that was a little bit more on Mark Connor on Diaz and some of the circumstances as Chris was talking about behind it. But so we did get a question. There was 2 questions in here. First foremost, one on the Canadian catcher Brady. Wow, I'm gonna try this, Sir.
I think it's probably Sirkonik.
Probably
Sirkonik.
Okay.
Brady Sirkonik.
Yeah. So I was just gonna say I was gonna try, and I don't know if I failed, but continue. Go ahead.
So that's another kind of interesting one. He's as you said, Canadian kid, originally from Toronto, went out to Connors State Junior College in Oklahoma and put up ridiculous, absurd numbers. Basically, he came very close to winning the junior college Triple Crown. What was it? He hit 470 with 31 walks, 18 strikeouts, 23 doubles, and 27 home runs in 55 games. Now, our buddy Brian Sikowski warns us that basically the Oklahoma junior college stats are fake. They're not fake. They are real production, but they don't tell us anything because these are really small ballparks and really bad pitchers and tons of wind. So still, he was at the top of the heap there, and he's another guy who participated in the MLB Draft League, and so we got a little bit better idea of what he looks like against legit competition. He went 9 for 37 with 3 doubles, no homers in that, 5 walks, 10 strikeouts in 12 games. He did play 7 games behind the plate, threw out 6 of 26 base stealers, which isn't great, but it's basically average.
He also played hockey. He played hockey at a higher level too.
I didn't see that.
Yeah,
it's not a shocker though if he's from Toronto, right?
I don't want to sit there and assume that everybody from Toronto, Canada, but
I want to assume if you're in Canada, you're playing hockey, or else your friends are making fun of you. But no, I didn't see that. So that's good. It depends on, like, was he a goalie? Was he
he was a forward, which is a good thing. Like, again, I will say this once, and I'll say it again. I don't mean to interrupt you, but there's one thing I know about Canadian or hockey players. I went to a high school that won a couple state titles. All the hockey players who played other sports were really good at other sports because they were very well conditioned. I don't know what it was, but the guy who led my freshman team basketball and scoring ended up playing for the Carolina Hurricanes for a minute. His name was Damian Surma, one of the best players I've ever seen. But go ahead, continue.
But yeah, so so he played in that, and supposedly, when you're in that draft league, they have all the StatCast stuff. So apparently he put up some pretty impressive exit velocity numbers despite not hitting a home run or whatever. And if you go on Twitter, you can find a video of him, with a 1.94 pop time or whatever, but it's one of those, fake pop times where it's in like a workout where they never are anywhere close. But so you add, a tenth of a second to that, it's still pretty close to average arm. So teams always need catchers. That's why they took Bennett Lee earlier in the top 10. You just need catchers, and he seems vaguely interesting. I'm curious to see if he gets more than slot there, which would be they went 150,000. But I don't know if he was committed to play anywhere else. So it's a fun kid to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, and so by the way, somebody was asking about how the MLB Draft League works. So the first half is from June 1st to July 4th, and so it's 30 games per team. So then, and the second half started last week, goes from July 7th to September 2nd, and it's 50 games per team.
Yeah, and that's you assume. I think the second half is mostly going to be kids, rising seniors or rising juniors, if you will, for next year's draft.
Or professional players who have exhausted their amateur eligibility.
Yeah, it's kind of what they made out of the old. I think a bunch of former minor league teams that were cut away, basically, like the Mahoning Valley Scrappers and things like that.
Yeah, the West Virginia Power, I believe, is one of the teams.
Yeah, former New York Penn League teams, probably some old Eastern League or.
Oh, I'm sorry. They're now the Black Bears. I thought they were at one point. I thought they were a Pirates affiliate. I'm pretty sure they were.
I think they were. I think you're right.
So yeah, it's the Trenton Thunder, who was a former Yankee affiliate. Yeah, the Scrappers, State College Spikes, the Frederick Keys, which was a former Orioles site. And then the Williamsport Crosscutters. I don't remember. Spikes, I think, was the Mets. Maybe. I can't remember, but
was the State College Spikes or no? I don't.
Yeah,
remember, but yeah.
So, go ahead.
No. It's so.
We had another question here. It's from Andrew Miller. He said, "Weird and simple question. Why do you think the Tigers chose Clark over Langford? And what was the bigger implication of this decision?"
I don't know. What do you think? Why do you think they did it?
Why do I think they picked Max Clark? Well, here's the thing. I think that workout and based off that really impressed them. Maybe they saw something in Langford that perhaps he wasn't going to evolve any more than that, and Max could continue to evolve as a player. I thought the more I read about Max Clark, the more I realized probably the reason why they want and even for cost purposes, maybe a little bit to do with cost because they put in the money elsewhere. But Clark, I mean, he won Baseball America National High School Player of the Year. That's not something you don't, or that's like no small feat. And I think the multi-sport athlete aspect of it all too, again, I think that plays a role. I will say this, and I'll stand by this belief. If you are a player that plays multiple sports, I feel like that makes you a lot better of an athlete. And like, there's studies about this, whether it's some sort of science behind it. I think that it allows you to just work different parts of your body, make you a better overall athlete. Because when you start seeing kids having Tommy John surgery at 14, 15 years old because they're just solely focused on one sport, by the time they reach a certain age, they're burned out from it. I think having that variety, but getting back to Clark, but that skill set, being out there in football, working that part of his body, I just think there's a lot of things there, tangibles, that are similar to what they may be perhaps seeing in a right-handed bat left-handed bat, similar to Riley Green. Riley Green is one of the best, is the Tigers' best hitter, period. End of story. He was drafted out of high school. And I don't know where, admittedly, again, my reaction was one of shock, but the more you research on it, the more you see how he carries himself. I think in addition to cost, I think that just the upside there was too hard to ignore.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you there. I think what we saw from the rest of the draft is a good indication. I think Wyatt Langford would have definitely been the pick for the Avila administration because he's a college performer in the SEC. They probably give, however they grade their players, they probably give an extra 10 points or whatever for that. I think there's probably a multitude of reasons. Like you said, I think from hearing Scott Harris talk, that meeting did a lot for them when they brought Clark in, and they said they peppered him with all sorts of weird questions to see how he would react, and I think that really impressed them. I'm sure they got plenty of on the field stuff too. Probably got some interesting batted ball data from him, and he's a more well-rounded prospect than Wyatt Langford. I loved Langford. I love the power potential, but in the end, he probably is a left fielder, and Clark, if things go well, he's an impact center fielder who's also going to hit for power and steal bases. So it's like you can go either way with which player you like more, but the Tigers apparently viewed the up the middle player as a better prospect.
We'll get some words here from Scott Harris.
Simply here, what did you like about taking Max Clark at number 3?
We think Max is an elite talent. He was the best player on our board at that pick, and we are thrilled that he got to our pick. We think Max is a 5-tool player. I think that label gets thrown around way too much in our industry. We think Max has all 5. It's really hard to find a potential impact center fielder who can change the game on both sides of the ball. We think Max can do that. We've seen him do that at the highest levels of high school baseball. We've seen him do it all summer. I think one thing that Tigers fans are going to absolutely love about Max is how fast he plays. They're going to love how hard he plays. This is a high school player that is absolutely obsessed with getting better in every facet of his game, and we're thrilled to add him to our mix, and we're excited to get him through his physical and get him down to Lakeland and start his march towards Detroit.
All right, that was Tigers president Scott Harris on the Max Clark pick. Max Clark. I thought for some reason I thought it said Scott Clark. Max Clark pick. So we have more audio and video for that later for everybody. So we have also, let's see here. Who do I have up? I have Kevin McGonigle. We have some video from him. We have Bennett Lee. We have some Paul Wilson, and we have Max Clark himself. Although I think most people saw that, and we have Max Anderson. So we'll be playing that a little shortly.
Nice.
So, some more questions here for let's see here. Let's go see here from Noah. Do you feel Max Clark can move quickly through the system for a prep? Kind of Jackson Holiday-esque. Max's hitting tool seems very advanced for his age. Chris, I'll let you go with that one first.
Yeah, I mean, I hesitate to project him to move as quickly as Jackson Holiday has because what he's doing is pretty spectacular and unusual. I mean, there have been a handful of guys who make it up to AA as quickly as him, but yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point that the standout tool right now. I guess there's a bunch of standout tools with Clark, but people talk about his hit tool, right? His hitting ability and his ability to manipulate the barrel, attract the ball, and you would think that would allow him to put up some pretty good numbers early on in his pro career. We don't know for sure, once he starts facing these pitchers every day and playing every day. But yeah, a guy with that pedigree, you would think would move pretty quickly, at least to high A. I think maybe by mid 2024, maybe late 2024, we'll see him in high A, West Michigan. Maybe earlier if he goes to Lakeland this year and tears it up. I don't know, but I would think that he's going to move fairly quickly, just based on the tools. But you don't know until they get out there and do it. Like Raj talked about Riley Green being their best hitter. It was immediately apparent. Riley Green, our old buddy James Chipman, put up video of his first game in the Florida Complex League when he hit 2 home runs and I think 2 doubles.
Yeah,
it was just like, oh no, this guy's good, and that basically never stopped. He went up to the Connecticut, New York Penn League and performed okay, which was great for an 18-year-old, and then held his own. The average wasn't great in a couple of weeks in the Midwest League back when it was low A. But even getting to that level after the draft was pretty remarkable, and we knew pretty early on that he was a special hitter. We think Max Clark can be like that. We just have to see him go out and do it now.
Yeah, same here. I don't like to put the cart in front of the horse. And somebody, Andrew said in our chat, Holiday is a unicorn. From his advancement, I think he started the season at low A, and just within 2 weeks he was gone. 2 or 3 weeks he was gone, and then he made quick work of high A. Now he's in same thing with Bowie. Like I think what he's doing right now is phenomenal, and credit to Baltimore because they saw that when he was drafted, he wasn't projected to be the number 1 pick. No one saw that coming, and so Baltimore did a really good job of identifying that, and they're running with it. Now they have embarrassment of riches too. They got Mayo Smith too as well. Jeez. Or Kobe Mayo.
Yeah. Mayo Smith, the former
Tiger manager and founder of the Mayo Clinic. No, I'm actually.
Yeah, it's I think that the big thing with Jackson Holiday that I don't know that anybody necessarily saw coming was his ridiculous batting eye. I think he may still have way more walks than strikeouts through like A ball as a kid who looks about as young as Reese Olson, maybe younger. He's still got like rosy cheeks, and all the tools are there with him too. So that'll be interesting to see. It'll be. I would not rule out Max Clark moving really quickly because in some years he would have been the first overall pick. I think, it's easy to say in retrospect that he wouldn't have been, but last year's class, he might have gone ahead of Drew Jones and Jackson Holiday. I could see it because the tools are similar and the pedigree is there. So, but again, it's Holiday's a pretty exceptional case of a guy not missing a beat and excelling so quickly in pro ball.
All right, here's some more audio from Rob Metzler.
So he was your guy.
Well, I'm happy to go first. Would echo Scott's comments. I think it's a really well-rounded plus tool set with pluses in all the categories, really. And then talking about somebody who's just highly competitive between the lines, somebody who's highly competitive and somebody who's also a highly competitive worker who strives to get better in all facets consistently and has exhibited that to us for, we've had the chance to watch him play for a really long time now. So I think in that commitment and the consistency of that effort, and would echo Scott's statement about just the speed with which he plays on a daily basis, really, really brought us to Max and made us very excited about the selection.
Yeah, I'll just add, our entire scouting staff that saw him, was very excited about the tools that he brought to the table. To follow up Scott's comments about being a 5-tool player,
doesn't Mark look like he's washed in light? Look at that. Oh, sorry.
He can impact the game on all sides of the ball. Offensively with the hit tool, emerging power, the range and speed that he plays with on defense and the arm that he has. He's a very exciting player on and off the field, and just somebody as you get to know him, you're going to understand his personality and his drive and commitment to the game. He's just an exciting player to add to the organization.
All right, so those were some of the words from Rob Metzler and Mark Connor on Clark. So we did. Let's see here. I think we have somebody else, and yeah, there's a need. Let's see here to do. Yeah, one more question here.
Thanks. Scott, just a quick question. When I talked to Max earlier today, he had said that you guys had met with him, and I guess he had gone up there and met with everybody. But I guess what were you looking to get out of that face-to-face meeting with him? And I guess what boxes do you feel like he checks off just from a personal standpoint, not just as a player?
Yeah. Makeup's a big deal for us in this organization. Understanding the human behind the baseball player is really important to us. We wanted to put Max in different environments and see how he would interact with different people. We had him interact with us, certainly. We also had him interact with the player development folks. We wanted to see what type of person we were getting when he was out of his most comfortable environment, because every one of these players we take, Max included, will face adversity in the minor leagues. They will face adversity in the major leagues. So trying to put Max in different environments, trying to ask him difficult questions, trying to see how he thinks when you throw something at him that he isn't expecting, those are all part of our process. We want to evaluate the mental side of the game as well as we are evaluating the physical and fundamental sides of the game. I think the visit was a really important step. These guys met with him at the combine as well. That was also an important step. And watching him all summer and getting to interact with him when he was around his teammates and seeing how he interacts around his teammates, those are all invaluable parts of our evaluation process. And Mark and Rob ran an excellent process on Max and certainly our next two picks and the rest of our picks to put us in a position where we felt like we were comfortable with the person that we were adding to the Tigers organization. That's really important to us.
And you mentioned something too that it's new to us, Chris. He was talking about the whole personality side of things, and so I know a lot of times we've talked about where in the past the Tigers would draft somebody with a good character, if you will, but then you hear something like what we heard about Sandy Baez a couple days ago. We're like, oh, but that's another story for another day. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those things where I'm wondering if it was kind of like their litmus test to these players. Well, I would love to see how that would play out. And in terms of like, do they, for example, like these scenario questions, because there's always those, like when you apply for a job, sometimes they put you through those tests where they're like, they ask you the same question, but they rephrase it 5 different times. Behavioral analysis kind of test. So I'm curious to see, I would love to see how that process worked out here.
Yeah. And I think, we don't have a great feel for how it used to be. I don't think we've,
to a certain extent,
maybe we should ask next time we talk to a prospect who was drafted under the old regime, ask, if they interviewed with him before and what that process was like. But, I do think you're right. I think that they probably gave this kid a bunch of stress-inducing questions. I've talked about it before where, like, I wonder if when they were drafting Spencer Torkelson, if they ever kind of talked to him about, like, so what would you do if we said you have to change your swing? Or what would you do if we told you have to change this thing? Like, and see how they react, even if you don't necessarily mean it, just to see how they'd be willing to adapt and things like that. So, I think that's an important aspect of it. And, Max Clark is out there. Everybody, you can see videos of him for hours and days. There's small documentaries about him. He's been famous for a couple years. So you get a pretty good feel for his personality. But as I think that the main thing, and Brian Sikowski told us this on draft night, he said that kid wants to win baseball games and he wants to play really well. And, there's a lot more like personality and stuff into it, but that's his main concern. And I think, I don't know if it was Connor or Metzler who touched on it, but his competitiveness on the field, but also off the field, you can see him. He's like rocked up. He looks like a kid who probably spends a lot of his free time in the gym, which is not necessarily, ideal for a baseball player, but he's still pretty lean and quick. So I don't think it's going to be a problem. So yeah, it just looks like there's a really high makeup guy there. We'll see what happens in pro ball, as they said, once he starts struggling, and see if he's a good pro teammate. But I think that they were pleased with what they learned from him in that interview.
And we've been talking about Clark quite a bit. Let's go into Kevin McGonigle. McGonigle.
McGonigle.
McGonigle. All right, so we got some audio from him, courtesy of the Tigers.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh, there we go. First of all, I saw the video of you reacting to being picked and stuff. Describe what it was like in that room and who was with you. It looked like half your high school was there.
Yeah, it was a dream come true. Everyone's, I guess, vibes in there were amazing. I mean, everyone was there for me, supporting me, and it really meant a lot to me. A lot of family, a lot of friends. So it really just meant a lot that they all showed up and were there for me.
Who all was sitting? I assume that was your dad and mom, and who all did you hug?
Well, let's skip ahead a little bit here. Jeff's good people. All right, Jason Beck, friend of the show.
Thank you.
As this process was playing out, when did you realize that the Tigers were interested, and did you have a feeling on draft night that, during one of those picks that your name was going to get called?
Yeah, so I had a lot of in-home visits before high school season, and of course, Mr. Bretsch, which I call Coach Bretsch, he coached me at area codes, came to my house, and we met with him, and I could tell he liked me a lot, and that's when I was like, okay, they're interested, and then I just played my whole high school season out, and phone calls started coming after the high school season, and I was just all up in the air. I didn't know what was going to happen, but yeah, I mean, getting my name called was a dream come true, but we'll see what happens. I can't believe it happened, and it's just truly amazing.
You committed to Auburn fairly early, from what I read. How did that come about, and how easy was it to stick with them as your name got pretty big?
Yeah, it's always been a dream for me to play in the SEC. Auburn reached out, and that coaching staff there is top notch. It's the greatest group of people I've ever met, and first time we talked, it was a FaceTime call, and they wanted to speak with my family, which really meant a lot to me because family means so much to me, and I can see it meant a lot to them. So right away, they were number one on my board, and I kept getting recruited by other schools, and no one matched Auburn. I mean, their facilities, their campus, it was just unbelievable.
All right, so we have some video of him too, because that was a name that I heard a little bit about. That honestly, I'll be honest, this was one of those things where when the Tigers drafted him, the amount of that was in terms of like just how well received that pick was by experts was universal. It seemed like, Chris.
Yeah, wait. We put another video up here, or you want me to?
Oh no, just playing while you're talking.
Yeah. So first of all, a lot of fans have said he looks a lot like Cole Keith, I think, in the face, which I see a little bit.
Yeah.
People love him. Ben Badler from Baseball America, even before the Tigers drafted him, like I listened to their podcast frequently, and it would come up in every show. He was like, I'd take Kevin McGonigle in the top 10, he said. Like, he loves him. And if you watch a lot of amateur baseball, it's because he's always on the winning team, and he's always hitting, just forever. I mentioned earlier his like 470 average in 100-plus perfect game events. He was on the winning team in the Prospect Development League last year. I put this all in our scouting report, which is up on TigersMinorLeagueReport.com. I published that, I think, like 2 seconds after you published the Keter Montero, or before. So we probably should have coordinated a little bit better, but I wanted to get it up.
That's my bad.
No, that's fine. I didn't mention it. So, but yeah, he was on the gold medal winning, a world baseball team. I don't know what the tournament was. His team won the Perfect Game Classic. He plays winning baseball, and he seems like just a baseball rat, like a guy who's 100% focused out there. All the stories about him talk about how Chase Utley was his favorite player, and he emulates Chase Utley as much as he can. I think there's sort of muted upside there because the rest of the physical tools aren't crazy. You can project probably average power, maybe a little bit more if he pulls the ball. It's kind of average speed, and it's average-ish defense. Although you look at Fangraphs, and Eric Longenhagen thinks he's a no-doubt shortstop because of his feel for the game and his timing. But most people assume he's going to move to second base. But either way, I mean, like the kid hits. He's like a top 20, top 25 prospect at worst in this draft, and the Tigers got him at 37, which was a great get for them.
Yeah, there is a. You know what's funny too is I feel like, by the way, I put the prospect, the scouting report for Kevin on there as well. You can find that on our front page over at Tigers Modern Relief or TigersMLReport.com. And I actually got to talk to real quick, not to get too sidebarred, but I ended up talking to Kyler Montero. We had a couple exchanges of texts and just talked to him both English and Spanish. And so it was cool to see. Well, I translated it. He was more comfortable in Spanish, but either way, regardless, I just wanted to put that out there because it was a thing that we've been trying to get some more articles out, some of the more deeper dive stuff that you may not see elsewhere. So, but yeah. So anyway, there's a lot to like about his makeup, and between him and I think the next guy up too I like was Paul Wilson. We were talking about him a little earlier, but there's another thing too about the draft. The emphasis on pitching it didn't beat you over the head with it, I guess. In other words.
Yeah, it used to be in the Tigers drafts, they would go like 6 consecutive position players and then 12 straight pitchers, or, all pitchers in the first 7 rounds and then a catcher. It was just back and forth, back and forth. It really felt this for once like they actually were just taking the best player on their board for the most part. There were some picks you knew that were probably for money savings and things like that, but yeah, they didn't. It wasn't like obvious, like you said, just 6'4", 6'8", hard throwing college guy.
Yeah, it wasn't the Rockies, by the way. Because the Rockies, I mean, I'm sorry, but the Rockies, every mock draft had them getting Chase Oler from Tennessee, and it was spot on. And their MO didn't change at all. And I feel bad for all their pitchers they drafted because it's just going to be a giant, I'm not to say S show or anything like that, but it just seems like when you head to Colorado, your ERA is going to be, it is what it is. I mean, if you could prove them are somebody else otherwise, great. But I don't know. It was one of those things where I was looking at the draft board and like their draft board was pretty predictable the entire time. It was probably the only draft board, to be honest, it seemed like it was pretty predictable. But
yeah, I actually haven't gone back to look through everybody's draft class yet, which is something I like to do just to see who ended up with a draft I really like. But that's something we can do later.
Yeah. And as far as the reason why I mentioned pitchers is you can never have enough pitchers in the sense that they have been able, and I've been mentioning this the entire time. They can develop pitching anywhere, anytime. But however, the reason why I thought the emphasis, maybe I thought they drafted on the armor too, is because currently right now, you look at below AA in West Michigan and Lakeland, it's right now, it's kind of iffy right now. Right now, if you look at arms that are ready to move up, there's not many that move up. So just watching the system every day, that's why I'm emphasizing. Again, it is nice that they didn't put, like, in terms of like a pitcher, there wasn't that like overall emphasis on putting like the Angels did like a couple years ago. They drafted all pitchers, but my premise, the point I'm trying to bring up is the Tigers haven't developed international starters. Montero might break the mold, but they still haven't. Look at the Lakeland rotation. It is, and complex league right now. Those guys are not coming along either. So I wouldn't mind. The reason why I maybe thought they would draft a couple more arms is because of that purpose. And I know you don't draft for the fill a void, but you still want to see. I don't know, another arm or two. Maybe they'll do with that. They'll be able to get some arms that are post draft.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's one thing I haven't looked to see if they've even started talking about signing undrafted free agents. I'm sure we'll see about a dozen of those, but that'll be coming out in the next couple of weeks, I think. But yeah, I think the Tigers, they did well. I think this draft overall, lots of talent, lots of young talent that they needed, as you said. Honestly, you combine the West Michigan and Lakeland rosters, and it's hard to find more than a handful of legitimate prospects, unfortunately. That's just the way the system is right now. And they needed that influx of talent, young talent, just so they can, field competitive teams and have interesting players in the next 2-3 years, because it's the guys in those teams are going to be the guys in Erie and Toledo theoretically in another couple of years, and that's going to be ugly because there's not a lot of players there. So
and again, I'm not saying drafting pitching early. That wasn't my emphasis. I'm just saying I thought there'd be a couple more arms along the way. That's all. I mean, if they would have gotten an arm at 3, I would have been screaming no. But
now, did you have video of Paul Wilson?
Yes, I do.
All right,
I will.
like
Let me pull this
we
up.
haven't talked about him yet, and I would like to.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So thank you, Zach. We appreciate that. Did you want to answer this question first? Or you want me to pull up the video of?
Sure. What's the question? I didn't see it.
So the question is from Ty Cobb. He says, "Do you think it's a coincidence, or do you think the Tigers put an emphasis on left-handed bats? Both Clark and
McGonigle are lefties.
McGonigle are lefties. Plus, on the farm, both Colt and Parker are lefties."
I think they may just prefer left-handed bats in general because there are more right-handed pitchers than left-handed pitchers. But I don't know if it was like we need more left-handed bats. I think they went for the guys they thought could hit. And McGonigle, I think in a video said that he's a natural righty, but his dad from a very young age made him hit lefty because that's what dads do. Like, no, you got to. And now we know with Clark, he's a left-handed thrower too, so he's a legit lefty. But I think they went and traded for Justin Henry Malloy. He's a right-handed hitter, so I don't know if it's Veerling's a right-handed hitter, Mayton's a lefty. I think they just went after guys that they thought could hit.
All right, so here's Paul Wilson. Not Ben Feldman. There you go. I'm just trying to make sure I get to the question part of it.
Yeah.
There we go.
Here.
Yeah.
Oops.
I guess kind of what was this day like? What was yesterday like? Just the anticipation, building up, and how's it, Tiger?
Yeah. So yesterday it was a little bit stressful. After about the first round was over, I was starting to get a little uneasy. Like, oh, what's gonna happen? Where am I gonna go? When is it gonna happen? So I started to feel uneasy about that. Just a little bit stressed out, and then I got to talk to my advisor and started getting he was like, there's nothing yet, but still have the whole second round to go and the comp round for the second round, so it'll be something had happened, and then really nothing happened through the second round, and then we started talking to you guys at the last part of the second round, and then obviously after the second round ended. So then it was very much a relief to get a deal with you guys after last night.
For sure. So that must have been a really good feeling for you. What is that like today then when the pick finally gets announced and it's like, okay, I'm going to be a Tiger, this is happening?
Yeah, it's a big relief. It's a big relief knowing that I'll be a pro baseball player and being up in Michigan with you guys up in Detroit. And it's a very great, really refreshing feeling. And I'm just not stressing anymore, obviously.
For sure. Last one for me, just, what can you tell us about your pitch mix, what you throw, kind of your strengths and weaknesses, both, things that you do well now and things that you'd like to develop with the Tigers?
Yeah, of course. So I throw a fastball. If I threw 100 fastballs, 99 of them would be two seam. So I throw a lot of two seam. I throw a slider and a curveball and a changeup, and my strengths is that I can move the ball to all sides of the plate, up and down with every pitch. And then what I'd like to work on with you guys is really honing in and being able to throw to the inside part of the plate and run guys in on command. And then also developing my changeup even further.
All right. That was Paul Wilson. You can tell he was very nervous.
For sure.
Yeah.
And, he's referring to the press as you guys, I think, is part of the team. But, yeah, definitely nervous, but also kind of soft-spoken. So, you got to, get him you maybe send him to boot camp, make him hardened and ready for professional baseball. But
Get all the cliches ready.
But yeah, I mean, I watched some video of him, and that's interesting because I didn't know that he threw a two-seamer, but I wrote down low to mid 90s velo with feel for spin, needs to iron out mechanics, and the fastball seems more horizontal with run than vertical and ride. But there's a lot to work with. I put like a Tarek Skubal starter kit. You know, he's 6'3", 205, 210, something like that. 4 pitches. And really, when you watch him pitch, yeah, you could see there's room for a lot more velocity there. So I think it wouldn't shock me if he's up in the sitting mid 90s, touching high 90s in a couple of years. Really, really high upside there. They say that his arm slot kind of wanders a little bit, so that's not terribly uncommon for an 18-year-old. You need to iron out the mechanics a little bit, but you know, it's a really nice arm from the left side, and should be a guy that's fun to watch over the next couple of years.
Another lefty arm that the Tigers picked, and it was one of 2 players they picked from the University of Connecticut, and that was Andrew Sears, who they drafted in the 10th round. And there's a little bit of so I was able to pull up some work that he did, and so but I kind of like his delivery here, so I'm gonna start playing. It's kind of feels a little old school to it. It's like the mid 3/4.
He's pretty low slot,
yeah.
It's in lanky.
Yeah, I like the lankiness of it all, of his delivery when he goes into the pitches here. So, but yeah, I don't know. There's a lot to like about this arm too. It's an arm that I feel like the Tigers could do something with. He had like some look at he had some good movement on his fastball, but again, that pitch right there was a nice pitch.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting, as I mentioned earlier, like basically everybody in college got blown up this year. All the pitchers, with the exception of Paul Skeens and Rhett Lauder, like they all just put up terrible ERAs. It was something about the offensive environment this year. And Sears came from a D3 school. I think it was Rhode Island College, where he pitched for a couple years, and then so this is his only year in D1, and his stats weren't great, but at least his ERA wasn't great because in part he gave up. I want to say I wrote it down here: 11 home runs in 62 innings. So the command maybe not all that great, but yeah, fastball, slider change, and he put up good strikeout numbers. It didn't walk a ton of guys. Again, I think your point is well taken. It looks like an arm that they can work with. They can maybe coax some more velo out of it, maybe sharpen up the secondaries. We assume that they're going to be adding cutters for a lot of these guys, just because that's what Robin Lund supposedly is into. And he's also pretty young for a college kid. I think they said he doesn't turn 21 until October. So you're getting a fairly moldable piece of clay, if you will. And that's the 10th round. That was a solid pick.
Yeah, and also he was also in the Little League World Series too, I believe.
He was? Nice.
I think. I'm not 100% about that.
Guys,
somebody mentioned that on Twitter. But here's an example of him at Rhode Island College. And the reason why I want to mention that is because Andrew Miller says airbending is the future of pitching. Damn right it is. And no, here's an example of perhaps of how far he has come along in his delivery. So this is him at Rhode Island.
Yeah, so you see this is a little bit more.
Excuse me, high school. Pardon me, high school.
Yeah, it's like a decent tempo there, a little bit more traditional high 3/4, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he's got good size and looks like a decently quick arm. So who knows? Maybe they'll develop him as a reliever, but I think they'll probably keep him as a starter for now.
Yeah, again, that I think the pitch that if you can continue to hammer in on the inside, get that back slider in on the back foot there, I think that would go in pretty well. And I noticed there was something else too, Chris. It was something that I think it was what Wilson was saying, getting thrown in the inside. It looks like the Tigers also had a type of pitcher they were looking for and establishing the inside part of the corner. So the reason why I mentioned that is because there was an article done today by Emily Walden on Brett Hurdler about him trying to establish the inside part of the play. Even Montero suggested that too. So that could be another philosophy with the Tigers going forward. And we saw that a little bit last year. Towards the end of the year, and then with Sawyer Gibson Long, that cutter, that has some good back action to the inside corner too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. That I don't know if that's necessarily. It's like sort of self-explanatory, but people have talked about it forever. You got to establish the inside, but it's another thing to make it an organizational priority. Like everybody, we've known forever that you should walk more than you strike out and control the strike zone. But until Scott Harris came in and said, "This is, we're going to do this," and the Tigers have made some progress this year. I mean, that we've talked about it. It's still a long way to go, but they're emphasizing it and making it a point of emphasis or a priority, and it seems to be working. So that's something to watch going forward. Are the Tigers going to be breaking bats left and right with hard sinkers inside and cutters? It'll be fun to watch.
So, by the way, Blood Right, forgot to give Blood Right his bump.
Exquisite.
Thank you, Blood Right, for the $5 in the super chat. We appreciate that.
Absolutely. One of our biggest supporters.
Yeah.
Blood Right.
Blood Right is his blood is flowing through the podcast.
we already touched on Carson Rucker, I think, earlier. Yeah. He was one of the first ones, but their 5th round pick is kind of interesting too. Jaden Ham, fun name. And this is there's some really good info on him from at Baseball America. If people want to know that, you should subscribe. It's a great source of information.
And they just changed their website too. The website it's awesome.
Yeah, the only problem I have is I keep getting booted. It keeps kicking me off. I have to sign in like every 3 hours. But that part sucks. Can't work out the kinks, but yeah, I like the layout for sure. But so he's a kid from Middle Tennessee, and somebody in our Discord actually knew him or played against him, and he's another one with the stats aren't necessarily terrific, but it's an interesting delivery. It's kind of, to me, it looks like it's a
little over the top.
Yeah, it is. It's a high 3/4, if not completely over the top. It's kind of a long arm action, and it looks to me like he doesn't necessarily use his entire lower half very well. Yeah. Like he just kind of, I think he could.
That's what you're talking about, yeah.
But some interesting information that they gave us in Baseball America. His fastball sits in the low 90s. Has been up to 96, and it has 20 inches of IVB. 20 inches of induced vertical break, which we've talked about as being an emphasis of this staff as well. And he threw it for strikes 70% of the time. So he's a guy with fastball control, at least, and good fastball shape. Now, the question after that is what can they do with his curveball and his changeup? And do they develop him? They've got some guys kind of like this in the system right now. That's kind of the Halub or Blake Holub and Tyler Madison. High arm slot, fastball with carry, power down or a breaking ball. Maybe they'll just throw him out there like a reliever and have him move quickly. But he's an interesting guy with a pretty good arm.
You want some more ham? I got some more ham.
Oh, Deadly Ninja Beast says Karen Jack.
I could see that.
So, and then we touched on Bennett Lee a little bit. 6th round. Oh, you're throwing some more ham here?
Yeah, throwing some more ham.
Nice.
People want some more ham in the masses. I'm a Cuban. I like ham, so there you go.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
I think what was her? I got his stats here. He went 5-4 with a 5.31 ERA, 79 and 2/3 innings,
well, that's
93 strikeouts. He's got an interesting here. He's got a complete game and a shutout, and also a save. I think he saved a game in the conference tournament.
I could see him more of as a reliever than a starter.
Yeah, I think based on the pitch mix and the delivery, I could see that too. It's just a matter of what they see potentially, what they can do with him. But we'll see if he pitches at all in pro ball.
I'm sorry, you were going on. You were going on about the.
I'd moved to the 6th round pick, Bennett Lee, the catcher out of Wake Forest. He actually began his career 2 years at Tulane, which is where Jake Rogers caught. And interesting enough, his stats kind of got better when he bumped up to a better conference. Wake Forest is a pretty good place to hit. He's got kind of a really upright, quiet stance. Like there's not a whole lot of movement, no bat movement, and then he leg kick and he swings. Supposedly he's got some decent raw power, but not a ton of production there in college. But the thing you look at is really controls the strike zone like everybody else. I think he had a 17% walk rate and a 17% strikeout rate. Yeah, 32 walks, 32 strikeouts this year. And he handled a damn good pitching staff, which is what you care about the most as a catcher, right? He's a good defender. I think Wake Forest had 5 pitchers taken in the first 6 rounds, including Rhett Lauder and a lot of other quality arms. So it's probably just an organizational catcher. You don't want to put that label on him just now, but we talked about it before. Teams need catching. They always want catching. He's a good receiver with some offensive upside. So they could do a lot worse than that, I think. And he might save him a little bit of money too. This is a great play right here in the College World Series.
Nice.
He also got the game-winning RBI hit in that game. There it is.
He seems a little, I don't want to say small for a catcher. I mean, just based off his.
And I think he's listed at what, 6'2", 200.
Yeah.
It's probably average-ish, but then also we know that listed heights and weights are not correct.
Yeah.
Because Josh Crouch is listed at 6 feet tall.
And
he is 5'8".
Yeah.
5'9". Kedar Montero is listed at 145 pounds right now. He is 190 with thick thighs, probably.
Yeah. Oh, he's a big dude.
Yeah. So, Crayola asked, how big is Ham? Looked like a lot of effort.
I put it in there.
Oh, sorry.
I put it 6'1", 190.
6'1", 190? Okay, I thought he was taller than that. Yep, that's what he's listed at there. So, that's and then we're coming to number 7, John Peck from Pepperdine. He is the one player, I talked about this earlier, the one player who doesn't necessarily fit that mold because he struck out 21% of the time last year. It's like 23% forever in college. He struck out at a 30% rate at the Cape Cod League. But, again, hat tip to Baseball America for the information they provide. They said he was the best-looking fielding shortstop at the MLB Combine. And they also said he hits the ball harder than just about any shortstop in the country this year with top-line exit velos above 110 miles per hour. So in some regards, he feels a little bit like an old Avila pick here. This is a kid with tools, the power, but lots of strikeouts. So this will be an interesting test case where, like, hey, can we teach this guy some plate discipline? It sounds like he just doesn't see spin very well, and tends to swing it. But the athleticism is there. He's good enough defender to play shortstop, and they say he's capable of playing other positions too. So kind of a utility guy maybe there, but with some power upside.
Yeah, there's one thing about as soon as if you squint closely, he might look like Marcelo Meyer in the hair.
Marcelo Meyer. Yeah, I know. We're just kind of powering through all these guys. We already talked about Jank Diaz, super fun, probably the most interesting player in the draft. The number 9 was kind of the money saver, Hayden Minton from Missouri State, a righty. Still looks interesting. Looks like he really gets down, drops down and gets far out on the mound, and he probably has pretty good extension. And it looks like a sinker slider profile. Not sure. It's interesting story. I'm not sure what happened there. He spent 2 years at Missouri State and then went to a junior college and then came back to Missouri State for this year. So I don't know if there were, who knows what's going on there. I couldn't really tell you, but Brian Sikowski mentioned that he really liked Minton when he was at the JUCO. It's the low 90s fastball with the slider. So he thought that they might continue to develop him as a starter, but I also thought that his stuff could jump if they move him to the bullpen. So I could see that too. I don't know if you were looking for video of him or.
I was looking, actually. You know what? There was one guy I wanted to ask you about.
Right.
And we did get a question about where are these guys playing at. We'll get to that shortly because that's going to be kind of a tough question to answer. But this was the Tigers' pick at number 16 round. Danielle Evans, who was, I believe, is supposed to,
Evans, yeah.
Yeah, 6'6", 220. And he's looked like he's put on some weight since this, but I don't know, Chris. I kind of I love his makeup a little bit. He's just a lot of rare, like just in terms of throwing motion. I don't know, firing bullets. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's another kid with a really interesting story. He is from a high school in Georgia, famous high school in Georgia, Redan, I think it is. Same school as Brandon Phillips, Wally Joyner, Taj Bradley. Spent his first 2 years at Vanderbilt before going to the Cape Cod League and then transferring to UNC Charlotte this year, I think, where he was, I don't know if he was their closer, but he had 4 saves. But, everything I saw was suggesting that the fastball is kind of low 90s, but with a high spin rate and a pretty, an interesting slider. He did strike out a hell of a lot of guys this year. It was, 64 and 46 innings, so 12.5 per 9. There were some walks. The ERA wasn't great. But, yeah, I mean, you look at the body and you think, what did you say, 6'6", 220? Definitely looks like you can get some more velo out of that, you would think. And this is, it's just one of many of the really interesting kind of backstories in this draft. I am eager to see what he looks like in pro ball.
Is there anybody else you wanted to? I'll pull up some Andrew Dunford because I don't think we pulled him up yet, did we?
No, he was the first guy we talked about, but we didn't show any video of him. I think looks like a fiery competitor to me, which is fun. But yeah, big kid.
Yeah, big. I was gonna say this kid is huge. It's one thing that I noticed right away.
And it's Georgia high school, good competition down there. You can get lost in there, even though just because there's so many good players.
Look at that baseball field. Look how immaculate that baseball field is. Yeah. It is just insane.
Yeah, well, it's probably turf, isn't it? Or but still.
Yeah, so for a high school field.
Yeah. No, they take it seriously down in Georgia for sure.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, it's. I don't see too many fields up here that look like that.
They're basically wearing the Vanderbilt uniforms.
Yeah, those are pretty sweet. The pinstripes. Good repeatable mechanics. So it's one thing I first noticed right away.
Yeah, it's you wonder, he's so big. You wonder if they can get any more velo out of him. But who knows? Well, they have that everywhere now. They had it at when I went and saw the kid. Was it Brother Rice a couple years ago? First round pick. They had field turf there, and the funny thing is when you watch guys, that you have to learn to slide differently because it's like a slip and slide. You almost start halfway and then you just slide like wee. Like when I was a kid and I used to spray dust spray on the wood floor, and get my socks on and slide around. It's a different surface and it's a different game, but
I like that the comp. But no, it was somebody. Real said he looks like he should be playing football for Georgia. He looks like a tight end. He seriously looks like a tight end.
He's a big kid, and you see, like he's demonstrative on the mound. There's another video I saw where he was really screaming after he struck a guy out and stared him down. I'm like, all right, okay.
I just like the consistently landing on the same over and over again. That's one of those things I notice. I try to look for right away because they can't. In terms of, they can always clean up mechanics. Of course, we saw that with Gregory Soto, where they instead of the high kick, he went down to like a mid kick, which made all the difference. But still, being this age, I mean, again, it just looks like a dude already. I mean, I'm not saying he isn't, but it's just
he was a two-way player. There's some highlights of him hitting that look kind of funny. He's just one of those guys he's so tall that it was kind of a toothpick in his hand, and he has like to reach down 2 feet to hit the ball. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe he develops into Kyle Farnsworth. Who knows? Definitely interesting pick. I think that they probably sought him out pretty heavily. I think he's the top 200 type on perfect game, but wasn't really on the other radars. So that's good to know.
I do have video of him hitting.
Yeah, it's just kind of funny looking to me because he's so tall. Just have to reach down to hit the ball.
Yeah, it looks like it looks like he's trying to stride. Like, yeah, it's just kind of like.
But I mean, they draft him as a pitcher for a reason.
Yeah.
We haven't seen him swing yet, but not to say that he's not a quality hitter. It's just I think he's a pitcher.
Yeah. By the way, the All-Star game, the All-Star game is going on. By the way, we're not ignorant of it or anything. It's just
I saw somebody made a nice comment earlier. I said, mute the All-Star game. The boys are talking prospects. I was like, that's nice of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's.
Go ahead.
No, I would just say that there's only there's a handful more players we can talk. We don't have to spend too much time on each of them, but I feel like we probably should at least mention them all.
Yeah, go ahead. Continue on.
We already talked Sears from the 10th pick. Jim Jarvis, the 11th pick, shortstop out of Alabama. That felt like an Avila pick too. Sort of like, oh, okay, they're just going to go college. I thought they would spend money in the 11th round, but apparently they spent it in the 12th or later. But yeah, he's sounds like a decent fielding shortstop, 4-year starter or 4-year player at Alabama. Lefty bat, another guy who controls the strike zone, not much power. Maybe a utility guy down the road. That's all right, 11th rounder. Dunford was that 12th rounder. Brett Callahan, the 13th rounder, kind of looked like a lefty Ben Malgeri to me. Just up and playing at St. Joe's in the A10, good numbers, kind of well-rounded, steal some bases, develop some pop this year. Again, interesting to follow him in pro baseball. A guy who controls the zone. They're taking these guys over and over again because that's going to be the organizational mantra.
Well, Sean thinks that we're much more entertaining than the All-Star game, and I would agree with that because, quite frankly, it's just like this. It's kind of basically, hey, I'll tell you right now, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. told us the other day in the 2-1 pitch.
Yeah, Sean, I think depending on when you joined, we talked about Ham 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, he said he's going to watch it on the replay.
Yeah, so it's pretty
yeah.
close. You just missed it. Somebody mentioned David Smith earlier. Yeah. He is the second baseman, their second UConn pick.
Chris, you see the comment?
Hold on, boys. they both came out around the same time, I think.
Yeah, no, they
early 2000s.
did, yeah.
Yeah, David Smith. This is another like spark plug, top of the order type. He some fun stats about him I saw this year. Super aggressive base stealer with 39 for 44 on steals. Hit 304 with a 15% walk rate. So he scored 70 runs this year for UConn. Only the second player in UConn history to score 70 runs in a season. The other was George Springer. So that's pretty cool. But again, yeah, he played a bunch of outfield. They drafted him as a second baseman. We'll see what happens there. Kind of feels like that. Yeah, you just get the college bat, and he's got some versatility. You can throw him around, and maybe he'll, be a valuable minor leaguer. We'll see.
Another guy who had an interesting windup too, who the Tiger, in terms of his setup, was 19th round draft pick out of Arizona State, Blake Pivarov or Pivarov.
Pivots. Your guess is as good as mine. I was looking. I can't find video on that dude anywhere. Except from high school.
Yeah,
I saw a video from high school when 2020. Yeah. He pitched at this is from 3 years ago. He pitched at Arizona State for 2 years. There's zero footage of him pitching for Arizona State. I couldn't get a fastball. I couldn't get a slider. I have no idea what because he went to Arizona State as a I think a hitter, a shortstop. Started his freshman was mostly a bench bat and then moved to the mound. He's been a reliever the last 2 years. I couldn't tell you what he looks like now as a pitcher. I have to go back and see if I can find some video just from like a full game.
Oh, by the way, somebody asked if we do Immaculate Grid. Yes, we do. I've not done it in a couple. The problem is by the time I go on to play, somebody already put it on Twitter already. So I feel like I don't want to cheat. I don't want to do that. I'm not gonna do that. So I got to figure out a way to get earlier. Yeah, you know what? Arizona State is one of the most photography friendly schools out there in the Big 12. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah,
exquisite.
I'm sure I'll go keep digging and see what I can find. But like for real, like I found the stuff like you had right there, the high school stuff of him pitching, but I couldn't see anything of him pitching in college. So,
I found him.
Good.
I
Sweet.
found him. All right. And Arizona State too.
Presumably it's not a ton different. You would think he's throwing a little bit harder now in college, right?
Yeah, you would think. Let's see here.
But
yeah, he actually looks a lot different. He grew up a little bit. Wow, this camera work is.
I don't know if this is Arizona State. I know it's got the Arizona State colors, but it's got the Perfect Game logo there, and it said 2021 eligible.
That's Arizona State. You can see
Does it say Devils in the front?
Yeah, in the ASU, you can always tell.
They're playing. Would this be Notre Dame?
Or UCLA. Oh no, that's right. Notre Dame's that stupid. Yeah, some stupid with their gold helmets. Yeah, I think you're right there.
Yeah, that definitely looks like the Sun Devils. So looks
that was a
kind of lanky fastball.
Whoa, there was nice there.
Little short slider. I don't know if it was a changeup or just a fastball, but yeah. So it's kind of but still, it's a little bit harder to find video of a guy you would think would be pretty well scouted at a major baseball school. But
by the way, Ninja Daily Bees makes a good point. I'm blown away that the Pac-12 does. The Pac-12 does not have a TV deal.
You have to watch online, I think.
You have Los Angeles, the number one media market in the country. You know, effing TV deal. Yeah. Knowing full well, like we talking to Gabe Alvarez about how much people tune in from across the country to watch
famous Big Ten baseball school USC.
Yeah, USC, yeah, or UCLA for that matter. But then the founder of Nike went to the University of Oregon. How the hell do you not? Wow.
I don't know. Yeah, that's a.
But gold helmets to play 500 football and baseball. Andrew Miller, you made my night. Thank you, because I hate that school.
Oh, yeah, you came very close to watching them get upset by Toledo, didn't you? In football.
Yeah,
you were
very
there.
close. I was there. And I went to go see Touchdown Jesus. I wanted to see. I will give credit where credit's due. As a beautiful campus, fantastic campus. That is beautiful. The facility was really nice. Don't get me wrong, but in terms of, I hate an irrational word. I don't like Notre Dame fans because Notre Dame fans are worse than Ohio State fans. I've told the story before where I was at something for a function at U of M Dearborn, and we had a Notre Dame alumni came and was doing this for like a network leaders thing. That's what I was part of. And so she was saying, like, well, if you're Notre Dame grad, I'll help you. But if you're nobody else, I really don't care. And basically saying, in other words, it's who you know, not what you know. So I was like, what's the point of you coming here? To just rub it in our face, like, oh, it's Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
that's pretty much the way it is. I think there are only 3 players we haven't talked about. And they're 3 very interesting players. They're all high school kids. The 17th round pick, Bradley Stewart, left-handed pitcher, 6'3", 200 pounds, I think out of Florida. The video I was able to find was from a couple years ago, like 2022, 2021.
Is it Bradley Stewart?
Bradley Stewart, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of a really funky, low slot, slinging left-handed arm action. And again, like there's not a ton of him out there. He's an Eastern Kentucky commit, which would make me think that he's probably signable. And I think he may have been hurt in 2022 because there's stats for him in 2021. And then this year, the only stats they had was that he pitched 5 innings this year. And in those 5 innings, he struck out 15, which is pretty good, and walked 2. But no stats from last year and only 5 innings this year. That suggests to me that maybe he had Tommy John surgery or something.
Yeah, I can't find anything on YouTube, so I'm going to Twitter because sometimes Twitter will come through. You find people posting random video on Twitter.
Yeah, he's from Cooper City High School.
Here.
Listed 6'3", 220 for. But like I said,
I can't nothing.
So to me, that's another one of those really interesting scouting finds where it's like this dude pitched 5 innings as a high school senior, didn't pitch at all as a junior, from what I could tell, and so they're signing him here in the 17th round. And like I said, Eastern Kentucky, maybe he goes to school, but maybe he thinks getting in the pro ball is better than going to Eastern Kentucky. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that was number 18. Number 19, or I'm sorry, that was 17. Number 18 is Ethan Ferris, third baseman out of the Houston area, named the Houston area hitter of the year, which is interesting. Again, maybe it's the tools aren't quite there, but he's 6'5", hit 477 with 11 doubles, a triple, and 10 home runs in the Houston area, which is generally pretty good baseball. And there was I found an article about him, and he said that he changed his swing this year, and it really did. It helped for him. He said that I have a hitting coach, and we do something called the flashlight drill. It's trying to get the knob of my bat to shine right at the pitcher. If I can do that, it really improves my success at the plate. No doubt that got me right this year. And again, as a high school kid, big, strong, committed to Texas State, probably signable. It's not like he's committed to UCLA or Vanderbilt or whatever, right?
Yeah, this kid's huge. I mean, this is another example we're talking about earlier. An athlete. This kid looks huge. I mean, he would probably, comparatively speaking to Carlos Mendoza, it's like night and day. But also, Lorenz came in and struck out Pete Alonso, so that's a good all-star debut there. So nice camera work there, idiot. Sorry, so
here's get a look at his swing. I mean, yeah, he's an enormous kid. You would think. I don't know if it's like a bat speed or what, but again, like these are guys that
is it just your systems. His hair look more dyed. It looks really bright.
It is very, maybe he's a towhead. But yeah, like to me, get guys like this in your system. Maybe it doesn't work out at all, but if it does, you've got a lot more than if you take a Nick Quintana or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no developing going on there. He just has to maximize what he has with.
He's two Nick Quintanas stacked together. That's how big this kid is. I'm like,
he's an enormous kid. So,
It reminds me of like Tony Clark, just. I'm not saying Tony Clark's batting stance or anything, but just how tall and big Tony Clark was when we first saw him come on the field. Pro wrestler here. There it is. You know what's funny is the Adrian Adonis. By the way, I'm a big fan of old school wrestling, and the Vice Dark Side of the Ring's new season. They have Adrian Adonis on tonight, and I'm so stoked. So somebody says, "Goddamn, he should be playing basketball." Richie Sexton. That's a Michael. There you go. That's a good one. That's a good comp right there.
Yeah, and you know, you assume there's a reason he lasted the 18th round, right? I don't know what it is for a kid who was probably very visible if he was named the Houston Area Hitter of the Year. So, but again, just get him in the system, work with, get your dev guys on him, see what you can get. And the last guy worth mentioning, because we've already mentioned everybody else, is their 20th round pick, Jonathan Rogers, another very interesting prospect to me. He's good body, 6'3", 215. Fastball in the low 90s. Apparently, he's been up to 95. Throws a curve and a change. There's some questions apparently about if he actually has some feel to spin. But yeah, it's another kid. He looks athletic to me. Looks like they just need to clean up his delivery, and he might be throwing a lot harder. And his commitment is to Louisiana Lafayette, which is a solid baseball program, but again, not necessarily one that you're gonna eschew a professional baseball future. So I don't know. Like I said, these are really interesting lumps of clay. I don't know if you found any video of him.
No, but by the way, he did like that he was drafted. So
yeah, I'm sure all these kids are paying attention. He's from Tupelo, I believe.
Yeah.
So
which is a very good song, by the way, by Van Morrison. Sorry, I was talking about Van. I was talking about I found him on Twitter, so I'm just trying to find any video of him.
Yeah, there's video of him pitching, and it's like you said, it looks a little raw, but he's a big kid, and I like the arm speed.
Where'd you find the video? Where'd you find the video at him pitching? I can't find anything.
Let me see.
Oh, you know why? Because on Baseball ML Tracker, they spelled his name
with an O.
No, they spelled his name Jon or JOHNTNA. They spelled his name wrong. In other words,
gotcha.
This is how they spelled. Oh no, it actually is. It's John and Nathan put together.
John, Nathan.
Yeah, John or John. Oh, JOH Nathan. I'm an idiot. Anyway, the point is, that's why maybe I haven't found him. I don't know. Like I can't find anything of him.
All right, let me see if I can find real quick.
All right. Tupelo Honey. Thank you, Andrew Miller. Andrew knew what I was talking about. That Van Morrison deep cut. But yeah, at any rate, I'm interested to see. This is another guy with lanky feel to him, and so
yeah, it talks to me about them digging more for prospects.
I did find him as a hitter, though.
Who did?
I found him as a hitter.
Oh, well.
I'll put that
Something's better than nothing, right?
Yeah. Continue. Yeah, continue, though. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, just the idea. Yeah, like they're going and finding these high school kids who might be signable, who have some interesting tools, rather than the college guys who are signable. And
and here's a line drive into center field. It's down in front of Hedges, rounding third.
Yeah, so weird. I didn't find this one, but
is in time,
on
but
Twitter.
Avoiding the tag is Lake Reed, and Tupelo wins it on a walk-off. A walk-off single by Jonathan.
All right, he plays for a team called that's a pretty sweet name, the Golden Wave. Oh, I did find some pitching. Okay, sweet. All right, continue.
Good work. Yeah, I just want people to get a look at him because it's a really, like I said, it's an intriguing body and arm, and for a 20th round pick, I think you could do a lot worse than a kid with upside like this.
I like his delivery too. There was something seems a little very, very simple, clean delivery. But
there we go.
Almost just like he slings it in there. Just
yeah, it's pretty easy.
Yeah,
and that looked like a decent breaking ball, maybe a little slow.
Well, there's nice. But because of his extension, I think that helps his extension a little bit. If you notice that, like,
Yeah, and again, this is a 20th rounder, a high schooler with looks like a pretty good body, pretty good arm. I think it's a great place to start. You teach him new pitches, teach him new delivery, teach him how to pitch. You got something. I don't know. That's generally how I feel. Like they took 9 high school kids and they all have really interesting stuff.
Yeah, like I said, that and Sean nailed it. The back-to-batter start is good, and that's it. When he gets to the extension, you don't see it to the last possible minute. So maybe that's where the Tigers saw something there with that.
But yeah, like you just trying to think. You know, we go through last year's draft, and they take Joe Miller and Jake Miller and all these college pitchers who don't necessarily light up the radar gun or do anything terribly interesting. And then this year, you've got a handful of high school pitchers that all have really interesting arms. It's I don't know. It's going to be a lot more fun to cover, I think, for us as the minor league report.
Definitely
to watch these high school guys and see how they develop, and because sometimes they take huge leaps and sometimes they stagnate. I mean, maybe they'll get stuck in the complex league. We'll never even see them in West Michigan. But I don't know. I think that there's a lot to be excited about with this draft class. You know, there's always good feelings the day after the draft because all the possibilities that could be. But yeah, I feel pretty good about this one, and I'm eager to see them perform in pro ball now.
So we do have Max. I do have some Max Anderson real quick before we get out of here.
Why did we draft Max?
Hey, Max, congratulations.
I appreciate it.
I just wondered how much interaction you had
think.
with the Tigers, and what was your reaction when they took you?
You know, kind of just the normal stuff leading up to the draft, I would say. You know, meetings at the combine, meetings with the area scouts, and then kind of just, I feel like for everybody, it just kind of goes quiet really until the draft day. And then draft day, I mean, it was here and there, like maybe going there, maybe going here. And then when it happened and, you know, got the call, I mean, my heart dropped. Like it was a child, like the child in me that came out. It was awesome. A dream came true.
Oh, that's cool. A tiny question about.
Yeah, let's get back.
Was it also a product of that same approach, or was there anything differently that you did going in?
Yeah, you know, I wanted to walk more going into this year, and it was like kind of a commitment to seeing more pitches, so to say, or just seeing better pitches. And I think I didn't walk as much, but I thinking the same thing, like trying to walk more was also me locking in on seeing the better pitch. So I think that was what really was the big jump. And me is just being able to learn the zone and know where I hit the ball, and when I hit it, like when I hit it in my spot, it's gonna work. And I think that's the thing that helped me.
All right, that was a little bit of Max Anderson there, and yeah, he did lead the Big Ten in hitting, but as Bruce pointed out, he grades below average run field and arm. Again, could be some bad ball data that we're not privy to that he could be doing.
Well, I mean, so they took him to save money for one. Not that I think they do like him. They wouldn't take a guy they don't like.
Right.
But they took him. So that was their final pick on day one, right?
He looks older than Scott Harris.
And their slot there for that pick was like 1.9 million. And so I think that they probably the slot for their next pick was 900,000. So my guess is they offered him $1 million, and he knew that he probably was not going to get that much. He was probably going to go somewhere in the 4th round or 5th round and not get nearly that much. So he jumped at that. Then the Tigers save 900,000, $1 million, something like that. And then they know that heading into the next day, because you heard Paul Wilson talk, right? He was talking about toward the end of the 2nd round, he started hearing from the Tigers, because I think that's when they said, okay, we know how much money we have to play with. Let's go find some guys we can get tomorrow with this money. And so I think it gave them the flexibility there to just lock that in and know that, you know, they had the savings. And I do think, I mean, he put up monster stats this year. I mean, college stats are college stats, but 100 hits, what did he hit? 410, 20 doubles, 21 home runs. He didn't walk a ton, but he also didn't strike out much. 11% strikeout rate. He's got really good bat to ball skills. He chases a bit, but that's one of those things where he barrels everything that he chases for the most part. His batted ball data is almost identical to Matt Shaw's, who went in the 1st round. 106.9, 90th percentile exit velocity. That's pretty good. That's more. That's like 3 miles an hour more than Jace Young last year. So there's a lot of pop there. There's some questions about the swing. I think most of his power actually went to the opposite field.
Yeah.
And there's some questions about if he can actually turn on balls. And he's not a great defender, right? But there are things about the bat that I think they liked, and I think they can work with. So, like I said, there are multiple reasons they drafted all these guys, but I think there was money saving involved, and I think there's something about the power that they like.
So Sean asks, as much as I hate agreeing with Gurash, have you guys switched your visual reaction to Max Clark? I feel better after a few days and see what Harris saw on tape. Look, the reason why we took a day off yesterday, I took a day off from outside of working on my Montero story, was simply that the initial reaction for me, I admit, that was just kind of like, come on, man, you're too old for that shit. Sorry for swearing, but it's true. Upon further reflection and everything, I'm excited about this pick because the more I read about him, the more I listen to him speak. He might be cocky, but you know what? That's okay. I'd rather have somebody out there that has confidence and can go out there and talk the talk and walk the walk. And he clearly does that. And he did this in the Midwest, which is really hard to do. I mean, again, think about that in a standpoint, from a weather standpoint, where players come from. It's not a guy from the South. It's somebody from Indiana, just right over the border. So he's doing those things. And I think that if a lot of he would have gone 1-1 elsewhere at any other time. There was talk about even the Pirates getting them 1-1, but Paul Skeens for them actually works out better. I think that if I'm thinking about this from the standpoint of process and profile, to use Mark Gurash's cliche, or not cliche, rather, but his phrasing, Mark's right about this. If it's similar to Riley Green, if it's similar to what they're doing, I trust what this is an organization that they've got some hits and misses so far. Zach McKinstry was a hit. I mean, he again, no one expected what he was doing this year. You look at Tyler Holton, and Chris said it best. They saw Corbin Carroll, and they said, "I'll take what they're having." And quite frankly, the Tigers don't have any athletes like. I mean, like even the guy who was just the gentleman that we just had that we're just showing right there in the. What was it the
picture?
Was that tall? The Houston kid.
Oh, Ethan Ferris.
Yeah, Ethan Ferris. That looks like bigger. Some of the biggest guys I've seen. Like, he looks bigger than some of the guys I've seen in the system. They all fit something that they're looking for, and I have to trust that. And I look at the way the farm system has evolved since Darko's taken over, and what they've been doing on the pitching side of things. There's a lot of things to like, but this farm system is thin, very thin. We have not, like, as much as we talk about the farm system, there's somebody out there who's like, "Oh, you guys are homers." Okay, no, we're very critical about this. But
look at the review on our podcast.
Yeah, look at the review. Chris hates Spencer Torkelson. He doesn't like anything about him.
Just nothing but, yeah. I don't think I was terribly negative about the draft pick, and I don't know that anybody was actually negative about Max Clark. It was more like you had this expectation, you had the guy that you wanted that was there, and then it didn't happen. And so there's disappointment about that. And Trevor right away said that doesn't make Max Clark a bad player.
Trevor was very wise about that.
And somebody earlier, I think it was Deadly Ninja Bees, very early. There it is. He did it again. Yeah, he was going to ask the question earlier, and I wanted to get to it because it's a great question. Can you compare Max Clark to Dylan Cruz coming out of high school? Because Dylan Cruz was just as famous as Max Clark. Maybe not Instagram famous or whatever. TikTok may not even have been around yet. But
what about the Vine famous?
He may have been Vine famous, but he was a big time draft prospect coming out of Florida. Everybody knew him. The difference is Dylan Cruz had a terrible summer showcase. Swung and missed a ton. Was not hitting the way that people thought he was. They thought he was going to have to play a corner outfield. He just didn't play well. And Max Clark actually didn't necessarily tear it up either. But what Max Clark did was he went back after the summer showcase, like immediately, went back, and you can hear them talk about this on the MLB Pipeline podcast a couple of weeks ago with Jonathan Mayo. He said that they got to work changing his swing. like 3 weeks. They worked on it, and he changed his swing to get more loft, to hit more for more power, and it worked. He went out and hit for more power this year. Swing looked better. Brian Sikowski went down and saw him and said all he was doing was hitting tanks left and right. Like, so there's the difference there. And not to say that Dylan Cruz obviously figured things out pretty quickly, and it was great in college baseball. But Max Clark had a better spring leading up to the draft. And Dylan Cruz was looked as kind of a probably, supplemental first round, maybe second round player in that draft. After that, he was viewed, I think, kind of heading into that showcase circuit, roughly the same as who's the kid the Reds took that year, who has not turned out terribly well.
Talk about
Hendrick.
Hendrick. Yeah, Hendrick. Not Kyle
they
Hendrick,
were
Hendrick,
viewed about similarly, and Cruz did not have a great showcase circuit, so he probably wanted the money of like a top 10, top 15 pick, and so he took his name out of the draft, I think, even, and then went to LSU and tore it up, and went second overall, and that's awesome for him. I think that it's likely that had Max Clark gone to Vanderbilt, he probably would have put up some absurd numbers for 3 years.
Yeah.
So that's honestly, I mean, that's the thing. I think Max Clark is a better prospect at this stage than Cruz was.
Yeah, and Cruz, from we heard, allegedly wanted $10 million at number one, apparently. So
we'll see. I don't think he's going to get that.
Yeah, but this is a good comment right here. Max Clark dominated high school more than typical high school bat, in my opinion. 808 on base percentage and a 645 average is crazy. He's absolutely correct. Satya, I want to say, am I saying the name right? Hopefully,
Satya.
Yeah. My apologies. I'm very bad with names. Look, my own name is just. But at any rate, thank you so much for listening. We are going to. So I'm asking everybody in the audience this evening that we are going to do our first half minor league recap. So we're going to either do it. You want to do it tomorrow, Chris? Or you want to do it Thursday?
Either way works for me. I'm fine. I think the FCL starts again on Friday, so we're not in really any danger of like missing anything. So
okay, so it's just well, let's aim for Thursday. Thursday gives us enough time to prep.
What about do it like Thursday afternoon?
Thursday afternoon. Okay, so we're gonna do a Thursday
show, a Thursday night.
Yeah. So yes, exactly. So Sean's making requests here. So we're gonna recap. So what I'm asking for the audience is give us in the comment section, leave the comment section, or if you want to email us, here's the email. I'm going to put the email in here right now so people can email us I'm going to ask you guys to do a homework assignment. I'll ask you guys to do very much of this, but here's what I want you to do. I want everybody in the following to give us your favorite prospect in the first half of the season. So for that, your favorite prospect. Who surprised you? Your biggest surprise in the Tiger Farm system this year, and what player or who do you see coming out? The other question was, this one's kind of more off the fly, but what player do you expect to rise up in the second half? And also first half disappointment. If there's a player that you thought that was going to rise up through the system really quick, put that in there too. So we're going to do charts. We're going to have a bunch of stuff. So that's why I said Thursday, because I realized like, oh shit, I got a lot of work. Sorry, crap. We got a lot of, let's look at there's a lot of work to do. So, but yeah, who the hell is,
we've talked about him a number of times. Yeah.
Yes. So there's going to be, Montero. I did the article on Montero. You can find over at Tigers Minor League Report, TigersMLReport.com. Check out Chris's write-up as well on several Max Clark. We have the second round draft pick there as well. So plenty of content over at TigersMLReport.com. So Thursday show, probably about 6, 7 show meeting. We're having a show meeting.
That works. That should be fine. I'm trying to think.
7 p.m. Thursday. Join us for the Tigers Minor League Report first half recap. As also, I'll have some podcast audio from Greg on Saturday. So we talked. Here's the thing. So there's a rain delay on Saturday, and Greg joined us before the rain delay, and I just wanted to get a few quotes from him, and end up being like a 15-minute, 20-minute interview. So I'll put that in there. before the no-hitter call. So
Greg Gagne, the
Greg
Eagles
Gagne.
announcer who was filling in for Dan Dickerson, and after that interview, went on to call a no-hitter.
Yeah. You can, again, Tiger Minor Report magic right there, ladies and gentlemen.
It is. It's the
Just saying,
TMLR.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Ben Malgeri went off for a couple days after that. Cole Keith, look at them. Come on. The proof is in the pudding.
Scientific
and also
fact.
Scientific fact. But it's funny. I took Greg, real quick story, we took Greg to Armando's in Southwest Detroit. So if anybody who's familiar with Armando's down in Mexican Town, because there's a lot of history in that place. I don't know. Maybe people maybe not know this, but the 1984 Tigers, that was the after party. So in addition to having Domino's Pizza, the Tigers celebrated at that restaurant, and they used to do a lot of carry out for the Tigers too. So if you go to Armando's, you walk in to the right and to the left, and then you walk left into the corner. There's a Sparky Anderson autographed pictures, Alan Trammell, all that. And yes, it does. Greg Gagne, Greg Gagne was a prime example of nepotism. His dad helped him get over. I don't care what anybody says. Vern Gagne helped his son. His son sucked. Anyway, no, but if you go to Armando's, there's a lot of autographed Tigers there. They used to hang out there in the 80s. They don't have these pictures up anymore, but they had these pictures of them after the party hanging out, and Jack Morris got one picture up there too as well. Marty Castillo, obscure Tiger from that team, is there too as well. So go to Armando's, not because they're my family friends, but that honestly, some of the best. Chris, you had the Mexican pork sandwich.
That was outstanding Mexican sandwich. And it's funny, I met you at Armando's once before. I think it was your birthday a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear you tell me the story about the Tigers used to go there, and we had that confirmed during dinner through text with an unnamed Tigers Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he
was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool day overall.
Yeah, that was a
first
great
ever
day.
no-hitter, and so
yeah, thanks to Greg for even hanging out with us afterwards. That was really cool of him to do. So, but on that note, thank you so much. We'll see you Thursday at 7 p.m. and have a good night, everybody. Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks.
It's gonna cut her. Greg Gagne, listen to me. What you gonna do, brother, when nepotism runs all over on you?
I've seen Greg Gagne. He's got nothing.